You ready to be?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's program hosted by Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Omega chapters, hashtag CAP signature program. This will be our last virtual program of this year. And our program today is entitled, How Do You Make Your Test Optional Application Stand Out? At this time, we would like to have Ms. Rashonda Glenn, who will be bringing us greetings from the organization.
Thank you, Ms. Hudgens. Good evening and welcome to our workshop this evening titled How to Make Your Test Optional College Application Stand Out. We are excited that you have joined us this evening. If you do not know, our signature program, #CAP, is from Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Rho Omega chapter. We assist students as they seek admission to college by providing guidance and support in completing applications in the enrollment process. This evening, we're going to focus on work experience, letters of recommendation, community service, as well as volunteering, which all plays a very important role when you complete your application. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We welcome you once again. And please take notes. This is information that you will definitely use. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Hutchins or Ms. Smith. I'm not sure which one.
It's gonna be Ms. Dixon.
Ms. Dixon, thank you.
Mrs. Dixon, yes.
Here
we go.
Kojitalia, what do you think that means? We're using a little Swahili today. We thought that we would kind of raise your interest. Kojitalia means volunteering in Swahili. Why do you think that we wanted to perk your interest? Well, a lot of times we don't think volunteering is important. So let's look at why it is important. My name is Mrs. Katrina Dixon, and I am a volunteer. This is an appropriate opportunity because April is Volunteer Awareness Month. I am a retired educator who now volunteers at Beaumont Grosse Pointe as a greeter in the radiology department, and I've been doing this since 2019. Was only out when COVID said no volunteers, but returned as soon as I could. Why do you think that I chose to do that? Well, I didn't start out at the end, so let's go to the beginning. As you see on the picture, there's a pink pinafore. And with that pink pinafore, back in the day when I was a teenager, it was called being a candy striper. And a candy striper, you wore a white blouse underneath there, and you wore the red and white pinafore. And why do you think that's important? Because that was the beginning of skills that I gained. What kind of skills did I gain? I gained responsibility to be present. I needed to be on time. I was on the schedule. I had a responsibility to complete the given task to the end. If I was going from one place to the other, I had to make sure that I got to where I was supposed to deliver the materials. I learned how to make square bed corners. And that was important because if I was going to be helping make up the beds, square bed corners was expected, and it was done with quality. I had to make sure that I was present because others relied on me to be there. I was responsible to take pride in the task that I was given. I was responsible to be focused and also to be aware sometimes that I would be given additional tasks. I was also responsible for communication, to be able to communicate back and forth with others. So through all of those things, from being a candy striper before I actually got paid, because remember that was volunteering, to the time that I have now retired, the dash in between the red jacket, which I wear now, and the pinafore, which I wore in the beginning, are all of the skills that I used for my work time. So volunteering is important because it gives you an opportunity to learn some of the things that I just shared with you. Ms. Smith is going to share with you additional information about volunteering. Ms. Smith.
Yes. So I too was a candy striper, but before that, I did that in high school with the high school organization I belonged to. I started out writing letters to South Africa for the release of Nelson Mandela and licking the envelopes. And so that also taught me about community engagement and civic responsibility and also civil rights. And so there are different ways in which you can volunteer. And some of these pictures are ways that I have and continue to volunteer, whether it's with Girl Scouts, and I was a Girl Scout, and now I still serve as a troop leader. The Ronald McDonald House, in which we serve families that have hospitalized children, and then teaching religious classes at my church to teenagers. And so that's sort of kind of halted with the pandemic, but those are just different areas. And from volunteering, that has helped me obtain jobs because, you know, as a young adult, I didn't have much experience, but I was able to list my skills that I obtained as a candy striper and other volunteer opportunities that I've been able to participate in. And it's just really something that makes me feel intrinsically happy to help other people. So why do people volunteer? People volunteer for numerous reasons. You can do it so that you can gain some experience so that you would be able to obtain a job. Sometimes, you know, while in school, you can obtain internships and you don't get paid for those. So that's volunteering. Or if you want to, you know, get into a specific program, you can volunteer. So there are various reasons why people volunteer. Now I want to ask you a question. And you can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourselves. Do you know anyone that volunteers or has volunteered? Or has anyone in this group volunteered? Nobody in this group has volunteered? Let's see. Well, what do you like to do in volunteering, Jasmine?
Sure. So something that I love to do is vacation Bible school with my church. I've been doing that since I was a kid, and I kind of did it as an adult. So I love children, and I love sharing stories about the Bible and helping them get engaged at a young age. So it gives me a chance to do ministry, but also really be able to spend time with folks' children, and they trust us with their children too. So I absolutely love it.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Let's see, Zion, you know I want to call you out since you're our chair of community service with ACA teams. Does anyone else want to share? Okay.
Hello, my name is Jaquette, and I can share. I volunteered at First Congregational Church, which is on Woodward, and I volunteered in their Underground Railroad exhibit, where they brought to life a actual route from Louisiana to Detroit. And I did that for a couple of years.
We took our Ascend students to go to that exhibit, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you, Mrs. Ware, for that.
Okay. So as the Calandra has something she wants to say in the chat. She says, I volunteer in various ways, feeding the homeless and Meals on Wheels with Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as Order of the Eastern Star. Thank you for sharing, Calandra. Sora Calandra.
Thank you. So at the bottom, you'll see a website, and Ms. Hamilton introduced us to Mentimeter, and so now we like to use it. And so there's a question on that Mentimeter that asks, what does it mean to volunteer? So you can just go to the website, type that in, and then we're going to look at what you think it means to volunteer. So give you a few minutes to do that. Oh, okay. What do you do when you volunteer at your children's school?
My apologies. I was looking for the unmute button. When I volunteer at my children's school, well, usually when they have activities, I like to volunteer to help out. It's fun because I like to interact with the kids and just be able to have access to what's going on inside the walls of the school, outside of parent meetings and things like that. So it's always fun to volunteer when they're having activities that the parents have access and they can come in and help out to make it a little bit easier for the teachers.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing.
We have two other comments in the chat. One is from Jackie and Jacqueline Hudgens. To everyone, I'm in AKA Teens and we do various volunteering projects. Thank you very much. You know, that's a wonderful group to be a part of. And so Rashonda Glenn, volunteering is very rewarding. It feels good to help others. It does. And I myself, we do a lot of volunteering and educational programs and activities, especially with Kappa Alpha Sorority. And I love doing it.
Thank you so much for sharing. So we're going to switch screens in a second to see what you've told us. We can get an account. Let me open it up here. So as you begin to write it out, we'll be able to see your results. Okay, and we can come back to this a little later on. Is it sharing? Let's see. So here are a couple of websites that I've personally used, and during this pandemic, they've been really good about including virtual community service projects. So if you're looking to do some community service for whatever reason, whether it's for intrinsic joy or because maybe you're, thinking about what you want to do. For example, Wayne State University has a direct admit program for nursing. And nursing is a professional program in which you have to take a licensing exam. Usually you apply for the professional school once you're in college as a college sophomore. With the direct admit program to nursing, you can apply as a high school senior, and you find out that you already have a place reserved for you in the professional program. So you don't have to go through that secondary application process while you're in college. One of the questions that makes them consider you for the program is if you've conducted any community service. There's a certain amount of community service hours that are required in order to even be considered for the program. And that's another reason why volunteering is important. So I just wanted to quickly show you. Is everyone able to see the website? Okay, great. Thank you, Jasmine. I saw your thumbs up. So we have Just Serve as one of them. And we click on here. For example, I put Detroit. And then we see that there are 8 opportunities within 25 miles. So you can look on here and say, oh, wow, it's do-it-yourself supporting our neighbor kits. We want to help people, and support our neighbors. There's a lot going on right now. So then you look and you see that it's from the United Way for Southeastern Michigan. So you click on check it out. You redirect it to the organization's website. And then you can see what's required. And as Mrs. Dixon previously referenced, this is Volunteer Month, Global Volunteer Month, the month of April. And so that's highlighted, and we see what the kits require. And you can be encouraged to host a drive. And so this is just an example. And then we have volunteer match as well. So I want you to think about 5 skills that you have. And again, this is utilizing Mentimeter. So if you don't mind going to Mentimeter and inputting 5 skills that you have. So just take a brief pause. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna go to Mentimeter. We'll go out. I see we're still working on that. So as you work on that, I'm going to turn this back over to Ms. Dixon, and we'll look at the results shortly. We're going to talk about skill sets.
Okay, thank you again, Ms. Smith.
Yeah.
You may wonder why we start out with volunteering. Well, one of the things that we know is that quite often our young people, our teens, volunteer before they actually get paid employment. And so you may not think that volunteering is important, but that is your first job. So let's take a few minutes and look at what a skill set is. When we talk about a skill set, it's going to refer to specific areas of competency, knowledge, experience, and abilities required to do a job. If you remember when I spoke earlier, I spoke about some of the things that I achieved by being a candy striper and even now as a hospital volunteer. The expectation is that I am on time to the job on the day that I'm supposed to be there. That counts with attendance. Attendance on a volunteer job is important, and we know that when you start to get paid, attendance is a must. Some categories for a skill set may include computer skills, communication, time management, research and planning, leadership and accounting. Some people may also call skill sets competencies or capabilities. Now, let's take a moment and just think about when we talk about communication. That's an important piece. So let's go to soft skills. So when we talk about soft skills, these are people-related interpersonal and adaptive skills, which can be everyday practical skills. They describe how you work with other people and highlight your personality. Many soft skills relate to emotional intelligence and include critical thinking, conflict resolution, and communication skills, among others. You can demonstrate your soft skills in-person job interviews. There's that word communication skills again. One of the things that we want you to remember, young people and parents, as you talk with your young people, communication. Communication skills is not texting. Communication skills means that you're actually going to be verbal and have a conversation with another person. Too often, we forget how to have communication. That may sound strange, but I bet if I was to put a meter up and ask how often do you actually talk versus how often you're on texting, that texting would win out versus communication. So we want you to remember as you go from your volunteer to your job that that skill set of communication and being able to think critical on top of your on off the top of your head, which is an old saying, off the top of your head, critically think is important. So that's a soft skill set. That's something that you do within yourself, that you demonstrate. And when you demonstrate that during an in-person job interview, it may be that you're able to talk about how adaptive you are or how adaptive you've been within the environment that you're in. So let's look at some additional skills. Let's look at some hard skills. Now, when we talk about hard skills, these are learned skills and you can quantify them. They relate to how you perform in specific jobs, like technical skills. Hard skills can include data analysis, computer programming. They can include word processing, speaking a second language. That's a skill. You know, a lot of times I have a goddaughter that is Puerto Rican, and when she was young, she was not that excited about being able to speak Spanish. And I had to remind her that being able to speak a second language may put you one up on somebody else. So we have to keep those kind of things in mind. Hard skill, accounting, being able to do coding. You know, computer coding now, that's a learned skill. Landscaping, carpentry, website design, all of those kinds of things. Electrical engineering. Now, I know that in high school, you're not at that point, but I want you to think about it. Those are just some hard skills that we're thinking about. So remember, you can learn hard skills on the job or through personal practice. You may learn how to design a website on your own, but once you learn how to do it, you know how to do it. And that is a hard skill that you have learned. So let's go to the next slide. Let's see what else. Technical skills. Well, there are a whole bunch of those we know nowadays. This set of skills includes any hard skills relating to technology. It could also include skills like technical writing or project management. As companies rely more and more on computers and network, technical skills are becoming increasingly common among all careers. It's myself with my telephone and that little SIMS card that we all had to switch over to if we were on T-Mobile. There was some assistance that I could use because that SIMS card and I were not having a good relationship. So in having someone that has that technical skill and then also having that interpersonal skill, which means that they weren't going to get upset because I wasn't catching on, putting those two skills together was an ideal person for the customer service and the technical skill set. Now, you may have been a volunteer, you may have been a young person, but if you could give that example of working with this lady that knew nothing of how to put that little SIMS card in and tell that to a potential employer, then who knows? You may have the job because they could hear how you used your personal skills, your communication skills, and your technical skills, and you put them all together and it made it work. And there was a happy little old lady that when it was all over, she had a phone that was working and she could communicate too. Let's move forward. Transferable skills. These are skills that you can use in different fields. They could be either hard skills or soft skills. Typing, problem solving. Problem solving is a big one. And a lot of times we don't think about problem solving. Problem solving is when you have to really take time to think and go through a process. And that's one of the things we're doing this evening. We're starting out with volunteering, how the volunteering connects with our why it connects with you being able to move on to the next level, how it will connect with your volunteer skills, how it connects with your community service as you are moving towards going to college, how all of these pieces are fitting together. Now we're going to go to the next level of where we're going to see how you're going to put these volunteer skills together, these skill sets, and move on to employment. So I'm going to move to Ms. Hudgens now. Turning it over.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. You and Ms. Adana has shared a lot of good information as it relates to how you were able to have these volunteer experiences, and then it led you into a professional job or other opportunities. And I always share with young people that, or people in general, that it was a summer job that led me into my first professional job. And I've always get excited to tell people that so far I've only had 2 professional jobs. And I like that stability of long-term of being at an employer. And so as we go into the work experience, and I'm going to share my screen here. We're talking about work experience and interviewing and resume building. And so with that, we're able to, or you as a student, when you go into interviewing, you have to be prepared. Oftentimes, students come in, or just people in general, and they might get a little lost when it comes to an interview. And so the famous question from an employer is always, tell me about yourself. And so oftentimes you have to sell yourself within a few minutes. They always talk about the elevator pitch. And so, oftentimes you can meet an employer or owner of a business, and they might say, hey, tell me about yourself. And if you're able to share information about yourself within that few minutes, they're like, wait a minute, here's my card, or here's my number, call me. I got something for you. And this is really true situations that have happened. But when you go and interview, when you're interviewing at colleges, you want to be able to sell yourself. And a lot of times we do not sell ourselves on a higher level. And so I just want you all to get into the mindset of taking these things into consideration. And let me go back. I'm sorry. So, and it's like, how did you hear about this college? You want to be able to share with that recruiter, how did you hear about that institution? And, like, what do you know about their particular school? And why do you want to attend that college? A lot of times people say, oh, I want to go to Michigan because, Michigan football and all these other, and basketball. But yeah, you might find out Michigan might not have the program that you want to pursue. So you have to do your research. And then also, you want to be able to look at, why do you feel like you should be accepted to this college? You should be able to tell that recruiter, hey, this is the reason why I should be here on this college campus, because of all these strengths and these assets that you can bring to that institution. And then also, you should be able to speak to some of your academic strengths as well as your weaknesses. And what do you plan to major in? Because a lot of times, if you have not discussed that and you're able to tell this recruiter, hey, I want to go into nursing. And they might say, wait a minute, our institution or college does not have a nursing program. And so then you would have to rethink about what particular institution you want to pursue. And then what are the expectations of your college education program? So you have to come in there with some expectations of that particular institution. Now, as we talk about interview preparation, you want to also identify or highlight your achievements. And so sometimes you may be able to bring that forth, or the recruiter might ask, like, what did you achieve in high school? What are some of your greatest achievements? And then also you should be able to analyze your achievements against your goals. And
I'm
did
sorry,
you achieve them?
Excuse me, Ms. Hutchins. The presentation isn't moving. We're not seeing the slides that you're on.
Okay, hold on. Is it possible you can share yours?
Yep.
Or okay,
Yeah,
just go ahead.
I'll
Okay. And
thank you all for
also,
being patient with us.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was going because it said it's shared.
Okay, one moment, please.
You
Okay.
may just have to stop sharing and then reshare it again.
Okay, hold on. Oh,
I am prepared to do that though, if you need me to.
okay. Yeah, for time's sake, go ahead.
Okay.
While we're waiting though, I did want to go back and look in the chat, and we have a very nice compliment. Ms. Katrina Dixon from Calandra Diabru, and she says, excellent points when you were making your presentation. Kudos to you. Thank you for your comment.
Ms. Hutchins?
Okay, so we're back on.
Is this where you were at?
Yeah, now I'm going into the next slide.
Okay.
Again, we're talking about achievements. What did you achieve? analyzing your achievements against your goals, and are you pretty much on task as far as achieving them all? Because a lot of times people do have goals as far as what they want to achieve during high school and then eventually going to college and what they want to do. And then talk about how did you achieve them? Because a lot of times it's about the process of how you process information. Okay. As we go to the other slide, we're talking about now it's time for you to share with the interviewee. I mean, you as the interviewee asking questions. A lot of times when you're in job interviews, they may say, hey, do you have any questions for us? And you be like, oh, yes, I have a few. But on here, I have about 17. And I think these are some of the questions that you probably as a student need to take into consideration. Talk about how many students, you're asking the recruiter, how many students apply to your college each year and how many are accepted. And often this information is on their website. And what is the average grade point average? Now, I know we're talking about test optional, but there's still some colleges who will accept ACT and SAT scores. So you want to talk about that as well or discuss. When is my admission status decided and when will I be notified? That's number one for college students, because now you and your parent can really pinpoint as far as finances, how we're going to finance and how you apply for scholarships and so on. And does the school give academic credit for AP or IB high school courses? And if you've taken those, that could also be an opportunity where you don't have to take those courses in the college or at that particular college. And then talk about the teacher to student ratio, because you might came from a school that is like a 1 to 10. You have one teacher and probably 10 students. But when you go to college or various settings, they may have in your general ed classes, like your English or your writing classes, or it could be a science class where you might have 100 people or 75 to one professor and a TA. So it's like a 2 to 75 or 2 to 100. And so you don't want to get a little overwhelmed by that. And then also, when is it necessary to declare a major? Because a lot of times we have been through this process where we say, oh, I want to be a nurse. Oh, I want to be a doctor. But something happens where you say, nope, that's not for me, and I need to make some adjustments. But you don't want to make adjustments too late, and then you find yourself having to take more classes. And then that's more money that you have to plan for. And then also, what's the percentage of students graduating in 4 years? Well, there's some programs that put you on a 5-year program or even a 6-year. So you probably want to ask about those different programs. And with those programs, sometimes that are 4 or 5 years, they may include a master's degree with that. So it's just good to ask. And then also, what is the teaching methods? Is it lecture, group discussion, fieldwork, etc.? Because now this is preparing you how to adapt in these different educational arenas as it relates to learning styles. And then also, what's the student body demographics? If you are like for me, when I went to college, I came from a community where it was like 99% African American. And then I went into an environment where it was 3% maybe of African American people, not students. But when I started that particular institution, I might have been 1% African American. And it was really a shock. But that didn't stop me from doing what I had to do. Yes, I was homesick, but still, I was on a mission to obtain a degree. And then also, what percentage of college students live on campus in dorms versus off campus in apartments? Because there's a lot of schools who are very traditional, that college setting. And then there's some colleges that are a commuter style. So you want to be able to see what's a best fit for you. And then also, what is some of the percentage of students who belong to student organizations? You know, this is another opportunity to get involved in volunteering as well. And then how much does it cost for room and board, tuition and fees? And also looking at, did any of that go up, increase from the last year? Because if that particular institution is constantly going up on fees, you and your parent might want to relook at to see if there's another institution that is low cost. And then also deadlines. What are the deadlines for admissions and financial aid applications? That's very key because that could knock you out of your scholarship or even other free money opportunities, okay? Or what they would say grant opportunities. And what percentage of students receive financial aid at the college? Because you have some schools who are private and they might not offer a lot of financial aid packages as it relates to grants. Okay. And then also, what kind of placement programs are available for students? Job placements. I believe just about every institution may have a career service program. And so you want to be able to go to that particular building or office to find out if they're offering any type of employment opportunities for you. And that could also be an opportunity for volunteerism as well that you can place on your resume. Okay. And then also, you want to look at attire. I know this is very sensitive to some, but I think it needs to be addressed. I remember taking our students to a college tour in Ohio, and we went to, I believe it was Wilberforce. And in order for any student to come into their main or their main building, that's where the president office is, vice president, and their other offices for professional staff, they had to wear professional staff. They could not come in there with bonnets on their head, pajamas or uh, slippers and act like, or looking like they had just got out of bed. They had to wear professional wear. And so a lot of those students wore, you would see them on campus where it appeared that they were quote unquote dressed up. But we want to talk about business casual. And these are just some options for men and women as it relates to, and I even also gave you a little picture here of how you should probably look or when you're coming in for an interview. And this can be for a job or even at that particular institution. And then looking at some of these commonalities as far as the clothing, sometimes they're pretty much simple as far as slacks or khaki pants, or for a young lady, knee-length skirts, if that's an option for that particular person. And then also looking at a blouse, a sweater, or button downs or polo shirts. And as you noticed today here, our committee decided that we would all look the same in our polo shirts that represented our committee. But you want to take these things into consideration because a lot of times when you go to that interview, you could be the standout of somebody else who just came in like, hey, I'm here. I know I'm going to get in. But sometimes that dress can be the set aside where the person who's doing the interview is saying, hey, that person right there really is saying something. They're standalone. They really caught my eye. And I like the way they were dressed and the way they asked these different questions. So when we're looking at attire, you know, we just have to get away from the ripped jeans, or you all call them the distressed jeans, or with holes in them. You just want to dress a little conservative. And then also as you go, or we're looking at what not to wear. I kind of chuckle with this because a lot of times I've seen students go on interviews, and before I'm like, hey, what are you wearing? And they was like, oh, I'm wearing this and I'm wearing that. And I'm like, no, you may want to rethink that. And then they might say, I don't have those things to wear. So if we're looking at attire, what not to wear, we can go to the next slide here. And I also provided a, a graphic to show what's probably not appropriate to wear, because we're looking at the flip-flops, we're looking at the distressed jeans, we're looking at athletic wear, um, stained or wrinkled clothing. And some people might say, you know what, I don't have that to wear. And we're going to talk about some resources in a minute. But I just wanted us to look at that clothing that is too tight or too short, that is oversized or too loose, shorts. You know, I've seen people come to interviews in shorts or with shirts that said inappropriate information. And as we look on the picture here that's identified, it says haters gonna hate. And here you're looking to become a young professional. You might want to, if you was at a party in your neighborhood, that might be okay for that. But when you're looking at a job, when you're looking at obtaining something that's taking you to the next level, you might want to rethink those things as you look at your type of dress. Not wearing dresses that's low cut or backless or crop tops, because sometimes that can take away from who you are as a person. In the next slide, we talk about resources. Now, people say, well, I can't afford this. I can't do this. Okay, well, we're going to give you some resources. Your school clothing closet. You know, oftentimes we've seen where colleges as well as high schools now have clothing closets, or talk with your counselor. And I'm sure your counselor can probably provide a referral or know about some other resources that can assist you with obtaining the simple, if you're a young lady, a black skirt or some black slacks or a nice blouse that you can wear to your interview, or even a blazer. I've seen where some schools have asked their staff to donate clothing. So where there's a way, there's a will, you know. And then also the resale stores. We have Salvation Army, the thrift stores, Goodwill, Value World. You know, these are the names that they're identified as. And sometimes we're like, I'm not going there, you know, because we have this pride issue. But I could recall going there and getting some nice articles of clothing, and that really assisted me in getting that job or what I was trying to accomplish. And then also local churches. And then there's consignment stores such as Plato Closet. But again, there are resources out here to assist you in obtaining that particular wear. Or some people would say, oh, those are my church clothes. So just remember that. You don't have, and then as we talk about resumes, okay, we talked about all those things. We talked about being interviewed. We talked about you as an interviewee asking questions, and then we're helping you saying, hey, this is the way you should dress. Now let's talk about building that resume. And when you're talking about building that resume, it's something so basic. The first step is your contact information. And you want to provide your name, your address, your city and state and the zip code and your phone number, because you want them to be able to contact you, and then providing an email address. Now, I've seen email addresses saying Mike, big boy at yahoo.com. And I'm like, okay. Now, probably you want to go something a little simple. Maybe your first and last name, like, for example, Maxine Hudgens at yahoo.com. Keep it simple. Because some employers look at that and like, oh, okay, let me put that to the side. And then as we go to the second step, we're talking about identifying your education information. Now we're talking about juniors and seniors here. So oftentimes you may not have a long history of education, but you want to put that last high school. You want to put the name of the school, the city and the state, the dates that you attended in that curriculum, or the type of diploma if you have graduated. And then we're going to later show you how to set that up. Now, in the third step, we're talking about the work experience or employment history. You know, you can use that word altering. And then you want to put the name of the company, the city and the state of that company, the dates that you worked, the month and the year you started, the month and the year you ended. What was those job duties and tasks completed? And then also part of that third step is the volunteer work experience. And it's the fourth step. And also identifying the name of the company, the city and the state, just like you did the employment piece. And then voila, as we take you to another level, we're talking about the fifth step. We're talking about license and certifications. It could be a driver's license. It could be first aid. It could be CPR, you know, because sometimes people don't have those different certifications. So that makes you, again, a standout from the next person. And as we go to now, what we're going to do is create a basic resume. And on here, I created this resume. Here you got Jack Hudgens Mills. He stays on 1234 Somewhere Street in Detroit, Michigan, 48202. Here's a phone number. Here's even a message number, just in case that number might not pick up or whatever. And then also that person is giving you an email address. And right here where it talks about his education, he says, I go to Legacy Academy. It's in Detroit, Michigan. I'm planning on getting a college preparatory type of diploma. And my expected graduation date is June 2022. Then he said, hey, I got some work experience here. He said, I worked as an office clerk aide from July 2021 to present. And that company is located in Detroit, Michigan, and he identifies what he was doing, his particular task. And then Jack, he has some entrepreneur skills. He found out that, wait a minute, I could mow, cut lawn using hand and power mowers, and I can trim and edge around walks or flower beds and walls for various neighbors' homes. So he was able to become a landscaper and become the owner of that business. And so also he talked about his volunteer experience at school. At his particular school, he was a student aide, which is a volunteer. And he volunteered from that period of time to the end when the job was done. And he talked about what he did as it relates to the task and duties. And then also he said, hey, I have some licensure and certifications here, which is a first aid. And he talked about it expires at a particular date. And then also he's CPR trained. So this is something very basic. I've seen where some students might only have one job, but they had a lot of duties in that particular job. So as we talk about getting prepared for all of that, we see that now the end result is this final product, which was that resume. And again, this information will be made available to you. So once we get your information, and I hope that you have provided us your email address, that we can send you this basic information. And at this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Rose Cook, who will now present on the letters of recommendation. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am going to share my screen and so we can keep going here. Can everybody see that? Letters of recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so just a general overview, what is a letter of recommendation? I know it's kind of basic. Some people might know already, but I just wanted to clarify that it's a letter written on the behalf of an individual or entity that conveys reasons for employing, admittance, or conducting business with an individual or entity. And it's designed to highlight your positive qualities. So this is a letter that someone else is writing on your behalf, stating why you should get admitted, why you should get hired, or why they should conduct any type of business with you. And so the typical uses would be for school acceptance or admittance, employment, scholarships, or character references. And the big question, where do you get one? And it depends on your audience. And so you're looking at people who are familiar with your particular skill set or your particular attributes that whatever you're applying for. So if you're applying to get into a college per se, then you are looking at your teachers, your counselors, school administrators, depending on the type of application or what the application is requesting of the writer for the letter of recommendation. You might also be considering clergy, your pastor or youth pastor, supervisors at your job, or if you're doing some type of work study program or co-op, they used to call it that in school. Any kind of community service provider. So for example, when they were talking about doing community service, if you did community service at Gleaners, maybe you did it more than once or you did it multiple times. You can also ask those types of places or people for a letter of recommendation. Oh, I think I went too far. So how do you get it? You ask. And so you want to ask people who know your skills. You don't ask the teacher you had 5 years ago necessarily, unless you kept a relationship with that teacher, or it was really a strong connection that you had. But you want to ask people who know your current skill sets. Current people in your life, those recommendations are of more value than someone who you barely knew or you've only had a acquaintance with or you haven't seen in several years. So that again, people you develop a solid positive relationship. And to also be prepared to ask multiple people. Sometimes it's not that someone doesn't want to write the recommendation. It may be that they don't have the time to do so, or they may not feel comfortable writing it. So be prepared to get a no, and it's okay. Don't take it personally. Just keep moving on to the next person on your list to ask. And then you have people you don't want to ask. Those are the people, like I said, that you don't know well, or people you have not had a good relationship with or good experiences with. I used to be a teacher. I used to write letters of recommendations for students all the time, especially teaching middle school. My students always want to go to CAS. And so I would write letters of recommendation for CAS. However, there were people who I had to tell that I didn't feel comfortable writing a letter because I wouldn't be able to write a strong letter of recommendation for them. And so you want to be mindful that when you're asking for these letters, that these are people who can actually say good things about you. And you also do not want to ask relatives or friends. They frown upon that because those people don't know you professionally, they know you personally. So in professional situations, you want to get professional references or letters of recommendation. So family and friends would not qualify for that. So the other part, what to do if they ask you to write it. That is common. So don't be surprised if you ask someone for a letter of recommendation and they say, sure, write it and I'll sign it. That's very common. So what do you do when that happens? So you're going to inquire if there are specific points they would like to have you include. Be mindful of who you're writing it to. If it's for a college admissions, they may have a specific form that they want the person to fill out. Or it may be just a blank slate and you can write however you want or whatever you want. But be mindful of what points that the person might say, well, yeah, include this. That means you need to be familiar with any required areas on the letter of recommendation and the format of it. Focus on the nature of your relationship and the interactions with the person that you're writing it for. So you're writing it from a different lens. You're not writing as if you're the person, you're writing it as if the person you asked to write it is writing it for you. So think about it. If it's your English teacher, think about how you interacted with her or him in that relationship, and you're going to write it from that focus. Highlight your strengths using keywords or phrases. And so words like strong applicant, highly recommend, this student is a dedicated hard worker. Those are words that indicate a strong letter of recommendation. So get your thesaurus out maybe and look for words that go in that frame. Because again, you're writing this, so you want to make it as strong and as positive as possible. You also, when you're writing it yourself, make sure you have that strong introductory paragraph, a solid body, and a strong closing. So you want to end it with, I highly recommend this student for admission into your university. And you're going to include how you feel that that person is a good fit, or how you're a good fit. And then also, when you get done writing it, give that draft and let them know that this is a draft. So if you ask your high school counselor for a letter recommendation and they ask you to write it for them, show it to them, say, here's a draft, and ask for feedback. Or they may just take it from there and just complete it themselves or make the edits and submit it for you. So you want to make sure that you have drafts, that you're in communication with this person, and that you're focusing on your strengths based on the relationship you have with that individual. Because sometimes you might need 3 letters of recommendation and you might get 3 people who say, write it and I'll sign it. So now you have to differentiate how you're writing that letter of recommendation, because it has to look like it's from 3 different people. So you want to highlight that relationship based on that interaction. So if you asked your counselor, you want to write it from that type of perspective. If you've asked a teacher, you want to write it from that perspective, and so forth, so that it doesn't look like it's all the same person who wrote this letter. And mine is really short. So does anybody have any questions? If I don't know if we're taking questions now, but that is it. Sharing. Okay.
So actually, Ms. Cook, we are at the question and answer portion. So does anyone have any questions? You can put the questions in the chat or come off of mute. I would like to revisit the Mentimeter and see what some of those results are while we wait and see if anyone has any questions. So let's see here. These are some good answers. And then let's see with the other one. These are 5 skills that were listed. Okay. Floral design. It's really useful. Mentoring, playing an instrument. Mrs. Dixon? Are
Yes.
these some of the skills? So let's see. The floral design, what would that, what type of skill would that be out of your
Well, that
skill
would
sets?
that would be a hard, remember, because
Mhm.
that's something now they could self-learn or they could go to classes to learn it. There are programs available to teach floral design, or YouTube nowadays has everything.
Yes, it does.
So they could go on YouTube, go to the Dollar Tree, get some artificial flowers, and just start to begin to work with it. And then it can blossom from there. All it takes is just a few unique beginnings to begin your own business a lot of times. So that would be a hard skill. And cooking. What would that be? I guess if you learned how to do it, that would be a hard skill too, huh?
Yes.
Which would take you to chef, learning how to become a chef. We could see one of our young people on one of the cooking shows. They even have the cooking shows for the very young child now. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, they're cooking and being a whole lot uniquer than I am. I mean, they have to think off the top of their head. There was one that had a muck fish or something. That was an ugly little fish, but they did some creative things with it.
Thank you. What do you think? What kind of skill is mentoring? I'll go under the communication skill, the soft skill, or
I don't know. What does the group think? Let's get some input. What would mentoring be? What is it to be a mentor? What does it take to be a mentor? Let's get some conversation with that one. You can take yourself off mute, because sometimes I think we mentor and we don't know. So let's get some conversation going.
That could fall in the area of mentoring, could fall within a service, you're providing a service for people.
Hi,
So
this is Patrice.
Go ahead, Miss Johnson.
I was gonna say leadership, maybe.
Ah.
This is Patrice.
Okay. Thank you, Patrice. So, Patrice, have you ever mentored someone younger than yourself? And if so, how did you do it?
Yes, I work at a summer camp called Life Builders. It's a Christian day camp. And I work with kids that are a lot younger than me with like learning to become a Christian and all that type of stuff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments? Have any of the adults go ahead, Ms. Coleman.
Yes, I wanted to say that I believe that mentoring can involve a variety of things. I think that as it was mentioned earlier, that oftentimes we're mentoring and we don't even realize it. As adults, we're mentoring our children every day. Sometimes we have younger siblings that we are mentoring simply by example, by showing them how things are done by our everyday actions. And so when we encourage them and we are mentoring them, when we are helping them with homework, we're mentoring them. When we are taking them to church and teaching them about faith, we're mentoring them. So I just think it involves a variety of things that we do.
Okay.
Ms.
And I just
Smith,
wanted
I'll
to
turn it
call,
back to you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to call the attention to your comment in the chat. That was very beautiful. You said, I don't have a question. I do have a comment. This was a very well put together presentation. You all pointed out very important information that young people oftentimes do not consider when they're preparing to begin their journey into adulthood. Thank you so much. And I also want to lift a comment that was put into the chat by Ms. Kimberly McDowell. I love the Goodwill. They have a lot of professional attire for cheap with tags still on them. It is a great suggestion. And one other comment I didn't get a chance to put in the chat, and that is for the person who was very interested in floral design. And that is that Joanne Fabrics offers a lot of classes, and so does Michael's. So you have an opportunity, and some of them are not very, sometimes they have specials. You get a coupon, so it wouldn't be extravagant, but it is another option for you to look at.
Ms. Smith, back to you.
Okay. So that would conclude the question answer portion. And then Ms. Rashonda Glenn said the overview for our #CAP program, which is again, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated's signature program. And it's geared toward 11th and 12th graders to help them with the college admissions process. So as our current administration comes to an end in July, we here members are still available to speak with students if they have questions pertaining to the college admissions process, financial aid application process. Ms. Hudgens has really been a godsend for us in helping students as they navigate that process. And this program that we've recorded today will be posted on our YouTube page for reference later, just in case, or maybe you want to share with others who are unable to attend this evening. They'll be able to view today's program and get some helpful tips. And they'll see this email address and they'll be able to reach out and contact us if they have further questions pertaining to that. And so as this program concludes, I would like to thank all of you for coming today, for listening, for participating, for sharing your viewpoints, for assisting us in making the program what it has been. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Dixon, Ms. Hudgens, and Ms. Cook for serving as speakers today. Again, if you have any follow-up questions for us, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. And have a nice evening. Oh, and thank you, Ms. Glenn, for coming as well. I wasn't sure if you were still here. Oh, Ms. Kimberly McDowell, who is the co-chairman for #CAP. She just dropped the program evaluation link. So if you would please fill that out and give us some feedback, we would greatly appreciate it. I'd also like to thank the committee members, Ms. Hamilton, who served as our chat questions. And we have, let's see here, we have Mrs. English, Mrs. Ware, who have assisted us as well. Thank you, Mrs. Dixon, for coming today. I'm happy to see you as always.
And this
Thank-
concludes our evening.